Buenos dias, Margaret, and thank you for joining us today at Business Spotlight Series. Today, I am excited to introduce Margaret Macleod, CEO at Harris Tweed Hebrides. Welcome, Margaret.
Fáilte Javier, fáilte go Holmór Inish Gal. So welcome to the Outer Hebrides here at Harris Tweed Hebrides to you too.
Brilliant. So, Margaret, tell us a little bit about the business. What does the business do?
So here at Harris Tweed Hebrides, we manufacture the world famous fabric called Harris Tweed. So Harris Tweed Hebrides, we are a traditional textile manufacturer using the woolen manufacturing process. So we're starting with 100% British pure new wool, and we do every stage of the process to dye the fibre, create the yarns, prepare for home weaving. We work with a team of over 100 home weavers across the island of Lewis and Harris who weave our patterns, and that fabric is then returned to our mill here in the village of Shawbost for final wet finishing, setting, and that authentication using that very famous orb trademark. So our business is a B2B business, primarily trading fabric.
Brilliant. And so when you going back now, when you were at the school days, was running a business, being a CEO, something you had in your mind when you were daydreaming at school, or how did you end up? What was your way to get to where you are today?
Well, I grew up 6 miles from this mill, actually. I grew up in the village of Carloway on the Isle of Lewis and Harris. And probably running a mill was not part of my day-to-day thinking way back in primary school. But the industry was very much part of my livelihood and my life at that time. So although my father wasn't weaving at that time, his father, so my grandfather's loom was in our home. And my father came to weaving a bit later in his life. He was taught to weave by his grandfather when he was a young boy, and then came back to weaving in his late 50s. So weaving and looms were very much part of our home. And then my extended family, I had two uncles that wove up in my granny's house. And weaving was very much around our villages at that time. So Harris Tweed was certainly part of my life as a child. And as I got older, my interest in textiles and all things to do with textiles very much grew.
Brilliant. But you didn't go there direct, right? You've worked for a number of companies in. So tell us.
Absolutely. When I grew up and went to universities way back in the 1990s, the opportunities weren't around. The industry here on the island was going through a bit of a decline at that time, and an investment in people wasn't what has been over the last 10, 15 years. So there weren't the opportunities that are now for me to come back to the island after studying. I did a home economics degree and then specialised in textiles with the Scottish College of Textiles in Galashiels. And at that time, opportunities weren't here on the island. Plus, I was young and I wanted to explore the world a little bit. So yes. I was lucky enough to work for Mackay's and Paisley initially, a retailer. I then went on to work for Topshop, who are part of the Arcadia group in London. So working for a PLC was very exciting. Before coming back and before returning to the island, I worked for Johnsons of Elgin, a very famous cashmere manufacturer based in Elgin in the north of Scotland.
Brilliant. And so then you joined the business, but not straight as a CEO, right? So tell us about, you spent 10 years maybe? Was it 10 years before you became
Yep.
CEO?
I joined, so Harris Tweed Hebrides started as a new start business in a very old industry in 2007. As I'd said earlier, through the 1990s and the early noughties, that period of decline actually got worse, and our industry, we nearly lost our industry from the islands in the mid-2000s. So about 2004 to 2009 was a very, very challenging point in the industry's history. Yes. Mill production had come right down. The weaving population was at its lowest ebb. The whole industry was pretty near to collapse. And that was really the catalyst for Harris Tweed Hebrides starting in 2007, 2008 as a brand new business. They did they were able to purchase what is now our mill. So they were able to purchase the mill here in Shawbost. And there's been a mill in this village since about the 1940s, if not before then. So they were able to purchase the mill that had been Kenneth Macleod Shawbost for many, many years. And that became the base that we have now. So that is now the Shawbost mill and where Harris Tweed Hebrides trade from. In 2013, I came into the business as the brand director. I went on to become the sales director. And then just over about 2 years ago, I became the chief executive of the business as my colleague, Ian Angus Mackenzie, retired from the chief executive's role. He had been one of the founding members of this company and continues to be our chair here at Harris Tweed Hebrides.
Brilliant. And how do you find the transition from moving from sales to CEO?
Well, I had been part of the executive team. So Ian Mackenzie, Elaine McCreary and myself had been leading the company for most of the past 5-6 years together, very much together. So that transition wasn't so much of a shock for me, yes. But I think being the one ultimately responsible and leading the company is an added responsibility, a huge privilege, particularly on our island where this industry is so important to what happens here on the islands and our island economy. So yeah, a significant additional responsibility, but a fantastic challenge and a huge privilege, as I say.
Brilliant. And now that you are running the business as the CEO, what are the typical challenges that you face as CEO of a business?
Well, I think day to day, obviously, the people are the most important thing here in the company, and they're the most important focus for Harris Tweed Hebrides. We can't do anything without having the right people in the right places and, empowering and enabling those people to do each part of the process. And to make Harris Tweed, there are a lot of steps and a lot of input from individuals and their particular skills, whether that be dyeing the wool, whether it be our carders that prepare the yarn, or spinners that prepare the yarn, or warpers, or how the home weavers carefully weave each metre of fabric until it comes back in for finishing. Everybody at Harris Tweed Hebrides has a really important role. And I think coordinating that every day, there's a new challenge. Also, we're a small artisanal heritage business operating in a very much the global marketplace. So our fortunes are dictated by what's going on in the world of fashion, by what's going on in the world of luxury brands. And right now there are some challenges coming our way around that, which are global factors, not specific to the micro environment we're operating in, but also impacting us. So talking to the people in the business, ensuring the business is operating well, people have the right resources, and then thinking about the wider market and how that impacts us day to day here on the Isle of Lewis and Harris.
And I talk to many CEOs and business owners, and a common problem they all find is recruitment. Okay, it's been ever so more difficult after the COVID. What are you finding recruitment issues in the industry, getting enough people, retaining talent, recruiting talent?
Yeah. Well, I would say we live on an island that's a 3-hour ferry journey from mainland Scotland. Okay. And we live on an island where right now there happens to be zero unemployment. Wow. So finding people is very, very challenging. Yeah. But we have a really great team, and retaining people, I think we're very good at doing that. So I think once we find the right people, we're good at holding on to the right people and keeping them in the business. However, any recruitment in textile manufacturing right now, and I was in Italy last week and was hearing exactly the same problems. Attracting people to traditional manufacturing environments is very, very challenging. Yes. That is heightened by our location, which lots of people find very beautiful, but perhaps not where they want to work right now. Yes. So, recruitment is very challenging. Retaining skills, transferring traditional skills, also very challenging, and finding the right training and support for those individual roles in the business.
I was talking to a managing director only last week who said that their growth is limited by the amount of engineers they can recruit. So,
I can appreciate that. We, as we move forward and invest in new machinery to do those old processes in the business, the technology around the machinery has changed significantly. So finding the skilled maintenance people is really difficult, and for us, we have to be very resourceful. So anything that goes wrong, we can't just drive to a kind of support network or take the machinery to a specialist. We have to wait, and our maintenance team are very resourceful for exactly that reason.
Brilliant. Now, is everybody who works for the company born and bred in the island, or you get the odd, recruit that see an ad, and they move to the island? How does that?
Yep, I would say our island is now a very diverse place. I mean, Scotland has a very small population. The Outer Hebrides has a tiny population in comparison. But I would say we have a great mix of ages, of ladies and gentlemen, of different skills. So we recruit from the island first and foremost, but we also recruit on mainland Scotland and further afield. So we're very open.
They'll come over and stay. Brilliant.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now you mentioned ladies and gentlemen. So what would you say as a business leader, CEO, to female businesswomen that are thinking of, running a business, or sometimes they don't have the confidence to step up to taking a CEO role? What your experience, having been there for some years, what would you say to them?
I would say go for it. Don't lose sight of your vision and your own skill sets and the opportunities that come your way. So, we're all leading very busy lives, whether ladies or gentlemen, family lives with children. Lots of things mean you're perhaps a little distracted from your work at certain times. But I think don't lose sight of your vision. Keep moving forward, and these opportunities will come around. For many years, perhaps that wasn't the case for me. The right opportunities weren't always coming my way, but I think that does happen even in small communities and small islands. These opportunities come up, and I think being open and ready. They don't always come at the right time. They don't always come in the right shape or the right box for you, but I think make sure you're adaptable and that you're willing to adapt, and perhaps the journey has to take various steps to reach where you want to reach. But being open and being adaptable while maintaining your focus on training and your own skills is hugely important.
Brilliant. Tell us a little bit about work-life balance. Being a CEO, being a wife, a mother, and having all your other passions outside work. How do you keep it all going?
Sometimes that's not very easy, but I think you just have to be very good at planning. So planning your time when you're not at your work, planning your time when you're with your family. All of these things are hugely important, and planning time with your friends as well. So completely switching off is not easy. It's not easy for me. I live on the island where our industry is a very open industry, and lots of interest from everyone in the community around our industry. We are not community owned, but we're certainly community based as a business. And that means switching off sometimes can be quite difficult, but I will take myself away to the mainland or plan time with my daughter. Those things are important to me as well. So not easy.
But doable.
Yes, yeah. I think you have to make time, have to schedule these things in, or everything can just become too much for you.
Yes. There is a great book, you may have read it. It's called Eat That Frog. It's a 100-page book with 21 chapters, 21 golden nuggets on time management. So Eat That Frog. It's a great read. It's a great read.
I think I'm learning from you, Javi. I need to make more time for reading business books. I'm definitely learning that one from you. So
Yeah,
I will.
definitely. I am an avid reader, and I always say to people that you know, your business will grow as much as you grow.
Yeah,
And devoting, even if it's 15 minutes a day reading, you know, something that can help you. That's great.
absolutely.
So Margaret, what are the plans of the business for the next, say, 5 years? Where do you want to take the business to?
Well, at the moment, we're undergoing an investment program. So we've been adding space to our site. Although we live on a remote island, we're kind of penned in. So we've been adding production space to our site. We're in a process of upgrading a number of pieces of key machinery across the business. And that's part of the reason I was traveling to Italy last week, looking at new machinery and looking at what other companies in our sector are doing. They're not manufacturing Harris Tweed. You can only ever produce Harris Tweed on the islands of the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. However, we're able to learn from these businesses and learn from these machinery manufacturers how we can make sure our plant and equipment is best suited for the next 5, 10 years ahead of us. The company has been trading now for not quite 20 years, but it's coming up to 20 years. And that's a fantastic milestone considering the journey the Harris Tweed industry collectively had been on for the few decades before that. So I think for us as a business, we are focused on strengthening our customer base. We're focused on ensuring our customer base remains diversified. So we supply into the couture fashion sector. We supply into more mainstream retail around garments and accessories. We also supply into the interior sector. And keeping that balance between interiors, fashion and couture is really important for the balance of the business.
Yes.
So we're certainly going to be focusing on that. Certainly fashion and couture fashion, those luxury brands are having a little bit of a more difficult time right now. And making sure we are maintain our profile globally and in the UK across these different sectors is hugely important.
Okay. How far afield do you provide your product? How far afield?
Well, we do a lot of business with the Far East, predominantly South Korea and Japan. They're markets that have been very loyal to Harris Tweed and Harris Tweed Hebrides over the years. The brand has got a great following as a heritage textile brand, a British heritage textile brand, huge following in Japan. Also, a growing business over the past couple of years in South Korea around that provenance and that story as well. We have a small business in China. We don't have a history of trading with China as much as we do in countries like Japan. But yeah, we hope that business will continue to grow as their luxury sector comes out of a difficult trading time. And they are looking for these authentic brands in their country. And there's such a tradition of textile manufacturing in China with their beautiful silks.
Yeah.
Going to the other side of the world, North America, particularly the US. So we hope the US will continue to be such a good market for us. They are very well informed about the Harris Tweed brand, and there's a great nostalgia back to their own roots, a lot of history between Scotland and the USA, and a lot of affection towards the Harris Tweed brand.
Yes.
What we have to make sure we're doing is keeping that relevant, making sure colour, design, quality, all of those key things are absolutely relevant to modern buyers. So we can't trade on our history. We have to use that and move forward with that history in the right way. Mm-hmm. So we're pretty global in our reach.
Brilliant. How important is branding in your business?
For us, that Harris Tweed brand, that very famous orb, is hugely important. Again, we can't trade only on that orb. So if the business is not top of its game in terms of how we treat our customers, how we present our fabric collections, the quality of fabric we're producing, the orb brand will not be enough to push that sale forward. So we have to make sure all of these things come together along with that very famous brand authentication, which is the UK's oldest certification mark that is still in continuous use. So it wasn't the first certification mark the UK presented, but way back in 1910, the orb mark started with another lady, Lady Dunmore, who brought that to the aristocracy in London at that time. And that first certification mark, now we recognise brand and IP, and all of these terms are common knowledge. Way back in 1910, I think full credit to Lady Dunmore for being part of what is now such a famous global brand. But very small beginnings and still very humble, small roots back here in the Outer Hebrides.
Brilliant. So who is your client? Who is your client? What's the profile of your typical client, your ideal client?
Well, every January we start again. So every season we trade with a focus on the autumn-winter garment season is still our main business. Our other business around interiors, that happens throughout the year. I would say in terms of fashion and couture, we've been incredibly lucky with our links into that top level couture. So we trade, although Vivienne Westwood has passed away, we still trade with her organisation, and it's fantastic to maintain these links that have been around since her brand started in the 1980s. She was a huge supporter for the Harris Tweed industry, and that continued and continues into the current time. We had a fantastic collaboration with Dior for their Cruise 25 collection that was launched at Drummond Castle, Perth, Crieff in Scotland in June last year. And that collaboration and the impact of that collaboration is still going on. I'm still talking about that collaboration and involved with events along with the Dior organisation in terms of promoting their links with Scottish textiles, and particularly their link here with Harris Tweed Hebrides, with their lead designer actually coming to the mill to start off that collection. Maria Grazia Shuri and her team coming here to the Outer Hebrides to start that collection. So we have a huge range of clients. We work with brands like J. Crew, LL Bean, FootJoy in the US, lots of great brands across the spectrum of retail and fashion. That's really exciting for us.
Brilliant. What going now to books, is there a particular book that you've read that had an impact in your life, or you want to share that any particular book?
Well, yeah. The book I'm going to tell you about is called Delia Smith, her complete cookery collection, which reading a cookery book is perhaps a rather strange concept for a CEO. But what that book did for me at a particular time in my life was quite important, because I was a young student at that time and I was challenged with effectively managing a kitchen, managing a salmon fishing lodge at quite a young age, where I was responsible for all of the food production. The activity around serving dinner was quite important. So it was an old salmon fishing lodge, and I, at the age of 18, 19, quickly became responsible for the whole enterprise that was going on there in terms of looking after guests. And myself and Delia became very good friends at that time. I was a young home economics student, and her work and her ability to present cookery in what was then quite a modern way. Okay, after that came your Naked Chef and your Gordon Ramsays. Yes. And my favourite cookery writer at this time is obviously Margaret Macleod, the Hebridean baker, who writes some really beautiful cookery books that capture the essence of the Outer Hebrides as well. But yeah, for me, when I was giving this some thought, and I'm putting it down to Delia Smith.
Brilliant, well done, nice share, thanks for that. So now wrapping up a little bit, what piece of advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
For my 18-year-old self, I would say hold on to your dreams and your aspirations. I studied textiles, and my dissertations were around the Harris Tweed industry for both my first degree and my master's degree. I would say at that time it felt a bit unachievable to be part of this island-based industry. I wasn't living on the island at that time, and certainly opportunities were few and far between. but I think just keeping hold of that dream a little bit longer than perhaps I at that time I felt it was very unrealistic. But yeah, these things do move forward, and I think again coming back to this concept of being open and adaptable. I think I was willing to move location for my work. I was willing to look at opportunities that perhaps weren't exactly what I wanted to do at that very time, and work for different employers. Learning as you're going along, you've said that yourself, is hugely important.
Yes.
So I think keeping yourself adaptable to change, being open-minded, and that willingness to learn new skills and work with new people, hugely important.
Brilliant. I love it. Hold on to your dreams and aspirations. I love it. Well, Margaret,
for sure.
What can I say? Thank you very much for taking your time to be part of our business spotlight broadcast. And well, it's yeah. Let's we will be watching the progress of the business, and very impressive to have a female CEO in our podcast. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Javier. Thank you.